The question of the pupil. You have said earlier that the same idea can appear completely different or can have a different meaning depending upon the background, depending upon the context in which it is expressed. So that there is no such thing as an idea existing on its own. It only exists in a context. And so it appears to me that what you are saying is that the teaching that was given by Gurdjieff to Ouspensky, when seen in the correct context, with the correct background, is a completely different teaching to the teaching that Ouspensky himself understood. Is that what you're explaining to us? The teacher replies, we have here the elementary pieces, the beginnings of Gurdjieff's teaching as he wrote it down. And I've started to list them off. First, we have two consciousnesses having nothing in common. We have two conscious minds. Secondly, we are living in the wrong one. Thirdly, this is the complete opposite to the established teaching in the West here about two consciousnesses. That is to say, this established teaching in the West contains the assumption that our conscious mind is us, and that our subconscious mind is some little adjutant or helper to keep this conscious mind, us, on track. But Gurdjieff is saying the complete opposite. He's saying that our ordinary mind is a false, fictitious and unreal mind, and that our true consciousness is that consciousness that we call the subconscious. And I have said that the difference between the two conscious minds, we have two conscious minds having nothing in common. Why do they have nothing in common? Because they're operating at different levels, at different speeds, at different tempos, different levels of intelligence. And that our subconscious mind, what we call our subconscious mind, is actually at a much higher level. This is the mind that should be our true conscious mind, but isn't. And Gurdjieff is speaking about the need for a transformation. We must raise the energetic level of the whole organism up to this new level, at which our true conscious mind, which we call the subconscious, can come to predominate in us. And only at this point can any individual development begin, any real development begin, because only then are we in our true conscious mind. Until then, we are living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind at a lower level. Now, if we transpose this as the background to what Gurdjieff was teaching Ouspensky, and which Ouspensky has recorded in the book In Search of the Miraculous, we arrive at a completely different picture than that put forward by Ouspensky. Because what was Gurdjieff doing in this teaching with Ouspensky? He was proving to Ouspensky that we are living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind, and that we have within us also remaining our true conscious mind. So Gurdjieff was proving to Ouspensky, both theoretically and in terms of practical tasks, that we are living in a false self, a false conscious mind, a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind at a lower level, at a very low level. Now, how was he proving this? Well, we follow the teaching through from this book, In Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky. We have a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind. It doesn't know itself. It does not have any self-knowledge. So Gurdjieff puts forward our target, the aim, self-knowledge. Know thyself. How are we going to know ourselves? Well, we'll observe ourselves. So Gurdjieff puts forward the task, self-observation. And he claims himself. This is New York, 1924. He said, self-observation is enough in the beginning, do not try anything else. Self-observation is enough for several years. And he went on to say, quite openly, the reason you are observing yourself is to come to the realization that you can't do it. We can't do it because we're in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind at a lower level. We should be able to do it, but we can't. And we have to prove this to ourselves. Then, within the context of self-observation, and only in this context, Gurdjieff says, gather the group together, what you notice in your attempts at self-observation. The group waffled on, as groups do, but Gurdjieff then told them, you do not remember yourself. Try to remember yourself whilst you are observing yourself, with the purpose of showing that we don't remember ourselves. The aim is to come to this. 2 years later, I think Ouspensky was asked by Gurdjieff, what has become of your attempts at self-remembering? And there is this marvellous line in the book In Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky, attempts at self-remembering gave no results whatsoever except to show me that we do not do it. We can't do it. We don't do it. Because we're living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind. So once we place what Gurdjieff actually writes, we have two conscious minds. We're living in the wrong one. Our true conscious mind remains in us. We call it the subconscious. But we are living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind at a lower level. Gurdjieff is proving this. This is the background to the teaching that is given in Search of the Miraculous. This is completely different from the picture that Ouspensky presents. And to give an example of the difference, then the tasks that Gurdjieff was giving to Ouspensky and that are part of the Gurdjieff tradition, self-observation, for example, self-remembering, try to remember yourself. These were tasks to show that we are living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind, and that's that. They are not the means by which we develop. This is why Gurdjieff made a fuss at a certain point, was it the 1930s, into the 1930s in America, where Orage had been teaching self-observation as if it was the means by which we could develop. And this is not true. Self-observation is there to show that we can't do it. Why can't we do it? Because we're living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind at a lower level. It's something we should be able to do. It's something our true conscious mind can do. But we don't do it. And we can't do it. And all this is provides a completely different teaching, a completely different backdrop to the book In Search of the Miraculous than that provided by Ouspensky. Ouspensky misinterpreted and misunderstood Gurdjieff at every point. But we can reconstruct what was it that Gurdjieff was teaching. He was teaching that we are living in a false, fictitious and unreal conscious mind at a lower level. We are not as we should be. Leading to a further teaching which, in the circumstances, because it was the First World War, because it was the Russian Revolution, this never happened. But this is how we change our viewpoint upon this book In Search of the Miraculous, to come to understand exactly what it was that Gurdjieff was teaching. No. No, no. What you're telling me is the Gurdjieff tradition. This is the automatic flow by association from Ouspensky's record of what Gurdjieff told him. Ouspensky has told how Gurdjieff taught self-observation. We can't do it. The Gurdjieff tradition, simply by association, says, well, we can't observe ourselves, but if we try and try and try, we will be able to observe ourselves, and we will develop. And Gurdjieff is saying, no. Self-remembering, this is more explicit. The Gurdjieff tradition is saying, we can't remember ourselves, but if we try and try and try to remember ourselves, we will be able to do it. And Gurdjieff says, no. This is the mistake that Ouspensky made. This is the mistake that Gurdjieff tradition makes. And it's not what Gurdjieff wrote. And it's not what Gurdjieff told Ouspensky. Ouspensky has recorded very exactly in the book In Search of the Miraculous what Gurdjieff said to him. Very, very exact. This book, very exact. Gurdjieff said that. But it's not the interpretation by Ouspensky that's exact. It's what Gurdjieff said. And let's look at what he said about self-remembering. He said, and I'm quoting from memory, so it might be close at least to what Ouspensky writes, I don't know. It's a long time since I've looked at this book. But Gurdjieff said, recorded by Ouspensky, very exactly, and this is what I want to stress, we need to know exactly what Gurdjieff said and wrote, and that's what we're looking at. We come to the conclusion that we must remember ourselves. Because we've tried and tried and tried, we can't do it. Because we're living in a false, fictitious and unreal consciousness. And self-remembering is not a quality of a consciousness, a false, fictitious and unreal consciousness established at such a low level. We can't remember ourselves. But Gurdjieff says to Ouspensky, recorded by Ouspensky, we come to the conclusion that we must remember ourselves. But we can remember ourselves only if we have in us the energies for self-remembering. Let me say that again, because every word counts. Copy it out, underline it. We come to the conclusion that we must remember ourselves. But we can remember ourselves only if we have in ourselves the energies for self-remembering. And this is Gurdjieff's teaching, and this is not the teaching of the Gurdjieff tradition. The Gurdjieff tradition is treating Gurdjieff's teaching as if it is something like a muscle that we have physically. We might be weak and flabby and out of condition. So we say we must work and work and work so that the muscles work better. The muscle works better. Keep going, work and work and work. It's a macho teaching, a machismo teaching. But Gurdjieff is saying we can't remember ourselves like a motor car that's run out of petrol. It's no good pushing it and expecting it to go at any moment. It's suddenly going to start and go. It's just run out of petrol. We come to the conclusion that we must remember ourselves. But we can remember ourselves only if we have in ourselves the energies for self-remembering. So suddenly we have a completely different teaching, nothing to do with self-remembering, nothing to do with self-observation, because these are things we can't do. They are qualities that the false, fictitious and unreal consciousness that we have, the mind that we have, who we are now, at a very low level, we don't have them. We can't do it because we don't have the energies for these things. And then we arrive at Gurdjieff's teaching. We don't have the energies for these things. So, why don't we have the energies? And how do we produce the energies? Not try and try and try to observe yourself. Not try and try and try to remember yourself. how do we produce the energies for these things? And then we will have these things in the same way as if you fill a car with petrol, suddenly, miraculously, it will go. This is Gurdjieff's teaching. So can you see how completely different the two teachings are?